RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions, life, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, a lot of interesting things right now on the RxMuscle.com YouTube channel and, of course, RxMuscle.com. The most unique, however, is going to be dropped later tomorrow, actually. It's going to be an interview with Roger Stone. And if that's not a name that not many are familiar with, Roger Stone had a key role in getting Donald Trump elected. And you just had a conversation with him a few minutes ago.
Yeah, my friend Amin Alai, the mad scientist, contacted me and said, I've been training this guy for, 25 years on and off. Of course, I know who Roger Stone is because, I follow politics. I know Chris Aceto knows who he is. He's been working with presidents since the Nixon campaign, Ronald Reagan, Bob Dole, so he knows all the players, so to speak, in Washington, D.C. there. And, he's into working out. And so Amin was at his house in Florida, and he got him on the show, and we interviewed him. It was a great interview. I asked him a ton of questions about, politics and about Arnold, why Arnold and Trump don't get along. And, he gives you such a great perspective on the American political system. It's truly enjoyable to listen to. Even if you're not into politics, you'll enjoy this interview. And once again, he's still a major player. He was on the Trump campaign for quite a while until he got let go, but he's still very, very good friends with Trump. He was implicated in the Russian hacking scandal and communicating with them. And if you Google Roger Stone, you know who he is, and you'll find out pretty quickly. But once again, the interview, tremendous, and I want to thank him and Amin for making that happen.
So again, that's going to be available tomorrow on RxMuscle.com. and the RX Muscle YouTube channel. Let's go to the questions. If you want to join in, you can join in on the RxMuscle.com Muscle Central Forum, on our Instagram page, our official Facebook page, or by tweeting us using hashtag AskDave. Let's go to Jackson Stat 1. Dave, what are your thoughts on the giant set method approach for building muscle that Milos Sarcev advocates? Can someone with average genetics benefit from this principle, or more so ideal for the genetically elite?
Mm-hmm. Giant sets are basically when you do one exercise after the other, but not the same necessarily body part. So you might go from chest, bench presses, and you might then run over and do lat pull downs, and then you might run over and do shoulder presses, for instance. I'm just giving you for instance. Everyone has their own techniques. It's one long set. And for some people, it probably will work. I was always the kind of guy, and I know, even though I was one of the biggest guys out there, I overtrained easy. I didn't recover well from my workouts. I'm a guy that less always was better with. And I found that for me, growing, when I ran around the gym like a lunatic from exercise to exercise, which is really what giant sets are, with very little rest, I wasn't able to lift heavy, and I really wasn't able to grow well. So for me, straight sets always worked better, where I would take 2-3 minutes rest and get rest up and then get ready and do another set, almost like slowing my body down a little bit. From the usual, runner's mentality I had of more, endurance, never catch your breath. Because after all, bodybuilding is about pushing heavy weight under tension and trying to fatigue the muscle, not necessarily an endurance type of activity. So I think that for at least for my body, didn't work well, the giant set system. Now, some people it might, I'm sure guys like Ronnie Coleman can recover from anything. You can put them in and do that with them. Guys like Dennis Wolf too. But a lot of guys fit into my category where they just overtrain easy. They don't put muscle on fast, and they need to recover between sets to get a maximum effort. And you have to figure out if you're one of those guys.
Got a message, actually, not a question. It's from Dale Chance. Dale, who was recently in an automobile accident. When we posted about him, when we heard word about it, he just posted, Dave, this is Dale Chance. I want to say thank you for posting about me on RxMuscle Instagram. It really meant a lot, and I want you to know that I really appreciate you. Actually made me cry, and thank you for everything. You're awesome. So good to hear from Dale Chance. Good to see that you're recovering from the accident a couple of weeks ago. Let's go to Phil Killerin. When in an off season with a slow metabolism, I guess he wants to know if I must train at night, should I have carbs at my post-workout meal after having a post-workout shake with carbs, or stick to high protein, high fat?
You know, you would think intuitively that you would want to eat lower carbs at night, especially if you tend to put weight on real easy, being an endomorph. But the truth is, post-workout, you really don't get fat from the food you're eating. Why? Because your body produces, and we've talked about this before, something called GLUT4 receptors. Nothing to do with Bleckman glutes. GLUT, GLUT4 receptors, which when they're produced on muscle cells, they increase the body's ability to absorb glucose from the bloodstream without insulin's presence. So your body will produce much less insulin post-workout because it doesn't need as much to absorb these foods. If there's no insulin produced, there's a much less likely chance that you're going to store calories as fat. So when you're training later at night, you want to have a nice carb, protein carb meal post-workout, because of the fact that the recovery is important, number one, and number two, there's not a very good chance you're going to store the calories as fat. So what you might want to do is, let's say your carb content for the day is 200 grams, okay? Maybe eat less earlier in the day and eat a little more later. You might want to do a 50 gram carb meal, post-workout, and then spread those 150 grams that are left for the day over the rest of the meals earlier in the day. And that'll work, rather than what most people think is eat the 200 grams early in the day and then don't have any at night. Well, that's not going to help you recover from your training. So I think in an off-season scenario, it's way better to eat, have a nice post-workout meal.
We have more or less a three-part question from William Allen. Can you explain first off, why sushi isn't part of a good bodybuilder diet? Also, what the heck happened to Ben White? Is he competing? And finally, is Tony Freeman officially retired?
I don't think Tony Freeman will ever officially retire because he's just that kind of guy. We'll see him at 60 years old probably competing. As far as Ben White, I haven't talked to him in a while. I saw him at an expo, I think, last year, and he's always thinking about some kind of a comeback. I don't, to tell you the truth, I don't know where he's at mentally or physically at this point. And I was always a big sushi advocate. Matter of fact, there's always a couple of people who don't really like sushi, which is raw fish, and I would tell all those guys, especially if they were bodybuilders, I'm like, real bodybuilders eat sushi. And matter of fact, I had one friend who I used to say this to, because I used to go to this all-you-can-eat sushi place every Friday. It's like, all the bodybuilders would kind of meet there in New York City. There really weren't all-you-can-eat sushi places back in the 90s, but there's one or two places were in Manhattan, and we would meet at this place. And my friend would come and he would eat it, and he hated it. And he wouldn't eat he would eat like the shrimp, the cooked fish. And he would pretend he was eating sushi because they were in roll form. And I would be like, look at this guy. He doesn't eat real sushi. Look, sushi is raw fish. I think that raw protein is great. Think about it. You haven't done anything to cook it, to char it, to change its configuration. Your body can that's how wild animals eat. They eat raw meat, So, is it good or not? If you like it, eat it. I grew really well on sushi because I could eat so much of it too, because I just love the taste of it.
Wolf of Essex, Dave, when finishing a cycle, when do you recommend cutting off aromatase inhibitors along with your last shot, or do you recommend tapering it off since you will have gear in your system for the next few weeks? Can you recommend doses if I'm tapering off? Also, do you think there is any benefit to keep them in during PCT?
Yeah, when you stop your cycle, usually you wait a week and then you'll start your HCG. So, I used to stay on the aromatase inhibitors a little bit, just maybe lower the dosage a little bit while I was off. If you're using like a 0.5 milligram of Arimidex, say every other day maybe, or every day while you're on cycle, maybe do it every third day while, you're off, or even keep it at every other day. Look, the easiest way to know if you're reducing estrogen too much is you're going to lose your sex drive, okay, right away, or you're not going to get a pump. Obviously, going for blood work would tell you, immediately if your estrogen's too low. But the bottom line is you're not going to be aromatizing as much testosterone because you're not taking anymore. So you could really cut it back probably to a 0.5 milligram every 2 to 3 days and be fine. Clomid, obviously, in and of itself, is an estrogen receptor blocker. So while you're on the Clomid, you might not need the Arimidex at all. So you might want to stay on the Arimidex through the 2 weeks of HCG use. So the 1 week you're off, nothing, then you start HCG 2 weeks, stay on it then, and then when you start Clomid, you might want to stop the Arimidex. That's usually what I used to do, and that worked fine for me. But everyone's different. It all depends on your estrogenic side effects. If all of a sudden you start getting nipple sensitivity and you start getting an increase in glands, because now your estrogen levels are too high and because your testosterone's low, you might need to take a little bit of Arimidex as well. Everyone aromatizes testosterone, meaning converts testosterone to estrogen at different levels. I think that I was once I got my glands taken out, for some reason I just didn't aromatize much at all anymore, because I think you need body fat. We all know that estrogen is made in the body fat, and that's where a lot of the aromatization occurs. I think when you have very low body fat levels, you don't aromatize much, and I think that later in my career that was the case with me. I just didn't need these aromatase inhibitors anymore because I really wasn't producing much estrogen. Whereas earlier in my career, when I actually had a little bit of body fat and I had glands in my chest, I think I did aromatize more. So once again, your body changes over time, and you have to make those accommodations.
Okay, Farley 41, Dave, your recommendations for finding a total number of sets per week per body part for hypertrophy. I went to find a good number of sets to increase upon where my recovery would not be hindered. Do you have a base number for minimum sets and a maximum sets per week?
I try to not go over 15 sets for any body part. That was usually only for the big body parts like legs and maybe back. Chest, I would never go more than 9 sets. Triceps, I never did more than 8 sets, and biceps, I never did more than 6 sets. This was when I found that was the sweet spot for my body. Shoulders, I did about 10 sets, I think, because you're doing shrugs also with shoulders. And that's just the way I always worked. I said, if I can't get a maximum stimulation on the muscle with the heaviest weights I can lift in those less sets, then I didn't do my job properly. I shouldn't have to do 20 sets to do my job properly and exhaust that muscle. So remember, it's the heavy set you're doing, the heavy lifting set you're doing that's actually building the most mass. So let's say you take legs for instance, it's the set of squats with 600 pounds that's building the muscle for 4 reps. If I can get up to 600 pounds and do that, then everything else I do after that is meaningless. So once I got through that set of squats, I just would do 2 sets of leg press, heaviest. I would do 2 sets of extensions, 2 sets of leg curls, and I'd leave the gym. And I felt great, and I grew. Because it's the squats that were building the muscle. Same thing with bench, If you're incline pressing 405, that's the set that's building muscle. Everything, you can go home after that probably, and you still build just as much muscle. So if you want to go do some flat bench, dumbbell presses after that, 2 sets and 2 sets of dumbbell flies, and then go home, that's enough chest. You did your job. You shouldn't want to be there anymore. You should be like, holy mackerel, my chest is maybe not pumped out of its mind because you're not doing pump sets, but it's certainly fatigued, and that's a sign that it's time to leave the gym.
Chase Tattershaw, actually one of your clients, he has a lot of people here. She has a lot of people asking them, how do you approach multiple shows 1 or 2 weeks apart? Do you go straight back to a depletion, then carb up a few days before the next show?
I did the Junior Nationals in 1995 on a Saturday. I drove back Sunday morning, 4.5, I think it took me 5 hours to get home from Washington, D.C. to New York. I went to the gym. As soon as I got out of the car, I had a meal. I went to the gym. I did legs. I went home. I showered. That night, I got on a plane to California. I flew out to Venice. In other words, I didn't want to miss that leg workout. So if you have a show and then you have a show the following week, that next day is leg day. Okay, because remember, you got the last leg workout of 7 days before, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are your last 3 upper body days, and then Thursday, Friday you're off, and Saturday you do the show again. So you're just basically duplicating the week before. Go right back to it. I always tell my guys, Saturday night after your show, that's your cheat meal. Enjoy yourself. Sunday morning, you're back on the diet.
Alexis Camino, I don't know if this is happening to them, but they just start off with saying loss or decrease in sex drive while on cycle/TRT. Happens to a lot of people, and you've always said that there should be no sex-related issues while on testosterone.
Yeah, well, there's a number of reasons why you could lose your sex drive. Either you're reducing your estrogen too much, which will do it, too much aromatase inhibitor. You're reducing DHT too much, dihydrotestosterone, too much, a DHT blocker like a finasteride, you could be raising your prolactin levels from like trenbolone or Deca too much, and that will inhibit your body's ability to have an erection. So those are 3 problems. Now, what I usually tell people to do is assess how much estrogen blocker or DHT blocker you're taking right off the bat. Usually it's too much estrogen suppression. A lot of people I put on my not even a drug, it's my supplement Testolize, because what it does is it balances testosterone, estrogen, and DHT. And it flushes extra estrogen out of the body. It doesn't inhibit the aromatase enzyme system. It blunts DHT but doesn't block it totally. So it keeps those hormones in track. And a lot of people who have acne problems or even hair loss, they find that they do better on that supplement because it balances their hormones rather than just wiping out the hormone completely. If you have an estrogenic side effect, the answer is not to get rid of estrogen from your body. It's to lower it a little bit, okay? When you get rid of it, because what happens is people panic. Oh my God, I got gyno. I got to take 14 Arimidex a day. They take that and then, maybe sensitivity goes away, but then they can't grow and they have no sex drive and they don't put any muscle on anymore and they don't know why, because their estrogen is 0. So don't be so reactive. Don't panic the minute you get a little sensitivity here, okay? Or the minute you think you're losing your hair. Don't panic. Panicking leads to the wrong decision making. Trust me when I tell you this. Same thing, I know guys that take 1 shot of Deca. Deca is a long-acting compound. It probably takes about a week to 2 to get into your system. They take 1 shot, the next day they think they've lost their sex drive already from taking Deca. It doesn't happen prolactin doesn't elevate that quickly. So a lot of it's psychological. So once again, don't be reactive. Wait, observe, write down your observations, see how long they last, and then make an informed decision.
Jason Hoke 97, my question is, do you think Colin Van Moger will capitalize on his potential in classic physique and actually stand toe-to-toe against some of these genetic freaks, such as Chris Bumstead or Steve Laureus?
I think that Colin Van Moger should ride his little Hollywood, I guess you could say, because, a lot of people compare him to Arnold. So he's got potential to make money in Hollywood. He's obviously starring in that new movie, Bigger. He's going to be in there. The story of Joe and Ben Weider. And his social media following is tremendous. I would capitalize on that. I wouldn't, necessarily worry about the competing as much. I don't think he'll ever live. I don't think he's ever going to be Mr. Olympia, if that's what you're asking me. But who knows? You don't know what's going to happen. He's got more of a mythical physique. People, in their mind have created this, greater than life personality for him that I think he's better off capitalizing on as a social media star. He'll probably make more money that way. You look at Sergi Constance. Sergi Constance has the most ridiculous social media following I've ever seen. And by him not placing at the Olympia in men's physique, it almost took the air out of his balloon. Now he still has the social media following, but I'm saying it took the mystique away from his physique a little bit. So I don't know. It depends. If he loves competing and that's a passion of his, I tell him go for it. If it's really not, and it's really to get into Hollywood and make a name for himself as a star, maybe get his own reality show, then I would go that direction. Because once you start competing and lay it on the line with the best in the world, and you don't necessarily live up to the hype, it does deflate a little bit, the mystique behind who you are.
We had a question earlier on about post-workout nutrition. We have another one from Bike Life John Gotti. Dave, should I be taking in simple carbs post-workout on a cut, or is an isolate shake followed by a meal of whole eggs and Ezekiel toast sufficient? Goes on to say great content lately.
Pre-contest, I don't necessarily have, I start out usually giving guys a little bit of a post-workout shake, but I don't necessarily think it's an imperative. Off season, we're trying to maximize weight gain. We're trying to maximize muscle gains. Every little minute, that goes by, post-workout, we want to take advantage of. That's why we jam this post-workout shake in. When you're trying to get ready for a competition, you only need so much protein, so much carbs, so much fat. Assuming you're getting the right macronutrients in the right ratios, there's no reason to be, running around like a lunatic, sucking down shakes. To be honest with you, when I was dieting, I would much rather sit down and eat a meal, okay, after I worked out, because it was way more satisfying to me than to suck a shake down as quickly as possible. It was like I wasted a meal, I would feel like, So it's really up to you. If you're not an eater and you don't care anyway, I guess that's fine. But don't be so concerned about post-workout nutrition when you're looking to get lean. Off season, different story. Suck that shake down. Get your 50 grams of isolate. Get your 40 grams of fast-acting, high molecular weight carbohydrate in.
Let's go to Jonathan Kaczmarczyk. Day one on a hypocaloric diet. Is low-intensity cardio the best way to go to target fat instead of muscle? Also, for individuals with high workload and manual labor jobs, what training style is best for growth?
Yeah, I mean, I like the lower intensity cardio route for fat loss. It works for most people really well, and of course, you don't have to worry about the muscle loss. That's great. I have a lot of people also talk to me about the fact that, you know, they work a high intensity job, they lay bricks, they do gardening, you know, they do manual labor. And what I found is, when I actually sat down and analyzed a lot of these guys' jobs, it wasn't a continuous type of action. While they were on their feet all day, they weren't continuously outputting, you know, tremendous high intensity workloads. So they really didn't need more, you know, food, or they didn't need more carbs. That's for sure, I should say. They might have needed a little more protein or a little more fat, but they really didn't need more carbs, even though they thought they might have. Usually, these guys also don't quite need as much cardio, okay, because they're moving around a lot during the day. So my knee-jerk response is not to give these guys more food. I think that they think in their head they need more food, and of course it feels better to eat more food, but I try to resist that and see how they do first. You know, when a person comes to me and says, I'm starving, I think I'm losing muscle, and I ask them how much weight they lost from last week, and they tell me 1.5 pounds, you know, I laugh, and they're like, why are you laughing? I'm like, well, you only lost 1.5 pounds, so, you know, that's what you're supposed to lose fat-wise. So you're obviously not losing muscle. Now, if you come to me and you told me you lost 8 pounds, you know, 5 pounds, and you've been on the diet for 6 weeks already, and you're losing enormous amounts of, that's a concern for me. That means you could be losing muscle, obviously. So it all depends on, you know, how the person responds to what you're giving them to do. So I don't knee-jerk give people a lot more food just because they're working a manual job all day long. It depends on their activity level, and it depends on how their body responds to it. Because a lot of guys, they've been doing this for 20 years, and they just adapt to it. And so they don't really burn that many more calories. You know, if Dave Palumbo right now were to go out and shovel snow in New York for an hour, I'd probably burn 800 calories, and I'd have to definitely eat more food, or I'd probably pass out. But if I shoveled snow every day of my life, you know, I would get used to it, and I wouldn't be burning the exorbitant amount of calories. My body would become more energy efficient at doing the activity.
Vicky Lindell, Dave, your thoughts on the keto diet and cancer benefits? My nephew has grade 4 brain cancer. His doctors don't think it will do anything, therefore discourage any, quote, unconventional treatments. I find this to be a bunch of BS from his doctors.
Yeah, you know, I've developed some cancer diets I've given to some people. The ketogenic diet is great because cancer cells like two things. They like oxygen, they like two things: a lack of oxygen, and they love sugar. Basically, when you burn sugar, which is known as glycolysis, there's no oxygen. It's an anaerobic activity. And that's what cancer cells are. They're anaerobic cells. They don't like oxygen, and they need sugar to divide and do their thing. So when you starve them of sugar with a ketogenic diet, that makes it hard for them to divide because they don't have a fuel source. And when you subject them to oxygen, oxygenating the body, okay, that also kills them. So a lot of people do ozone treatments with them. They do, you know, oxygen therapy treatments. Doing cardiovascular activity increases oxygen flow to the muscles and to the body. That is going to obviously be good. So training does wonders for people with cancer diets. People have cancer. Low carb diets, tremendous. And then the third thing that you want to do is you want to alkalinize your body. Cancer does not grow in an alkaline environment. It only grows in an acidic environment. If you think about it, if you look at a pile of you know, like trash, you know, that people, you know, the garbage man comes around and they collect your trash, they throw it in a big dumping ground. Think about the acidity level of all that decomposing trash. That's where cancer likes to grow. So when you clean that trash up in your body, you get rid of that acidity by drinking alkalinizing water, having green, you know, taking a lot of greens and salads and stuff like that, and green drinks. Okay, you're gonna taking calcium supplements, you know, high potency calcium supplements, which also neutralize acidity. You're basically neutralizing the environment the cancer wants to grow in. And once you reduce that acidity, your immune system starts functioning much better, because Cancer likes an acidic environment. The immune system hates an acidic environment, and it actually suppresses the immune system. So you want to make the body more alkaline. Okay, and I sell a product called Santa Via water filters. They're like Brita filters. They're like $40 or $45. You just pour your tap water in there. It filters the water and it alkalinizes it. You drink 5-6 glasses of that a day, you're going to super alkalinize your body. You do it in between meals. You eat a ketogenic diet with very low carbs, low sugar, you're going to starve the cancer cells, and you hyperoxygenate your body. However method you do it, that's going to also kill the cancer cells. And that's the 3-tiered approach that you really want to address when you do have a cancer situation. Because let's face it, cancer, we all have cancer cells in our body constantly being produced, but the immune system kills them off because the environment is not right for these cancer cells to sit themselves in and start, dividing. It's when your body is run down, your immune system's low, okay, you're not taking in enough alkalizing, supplements, and your body's very acidic, okay, maybe you're stressed out a lot. That's when cancer can get its foothold and start growing.
Muscles and makeup. I hate this show so much I may turn to CrossFit instead. I plan to compete at the Arnold Amateur this year. Pre-judging is Thursday afternoon and finals are Saturday morning. How much water, sodium, and carbs be manipulated when the two portions of the competition are that far apart? How do you recommend staying stage ready for the entire time?
Well, I'm not going to go through the whole, pre-contest week. You can, hire me if you want to do that. That's a long thing. But what I do with my guys to do the Arnold Amateurs, I get them ready like it's a regular show on Thursday. Then after the show on Thursday, I let them eat whatever they want and let them drink whatever they want for that night. I give them another half a diuretic before they go to bed, usually on Thursday night if they need it, just to counteract all the food they ate. Friday, they're back on the contest diet, and I reduplicate what I did with them on Wednesday to prepare for Thursday, I do it on Friday again. So it's like I repeat the entire process again. So it's just like it's like you're doing a show the following week we talked about earlier in the show, except it's 2 days later. Eat, drink after the pre-judging, re-deplete again the following day, and then you'll be ready for that Saturday finals.
Paul Falbo, Dave, how do you have any tips on how to keep your back completely straight when deadlifting?
Don't go too heavy. No, you got to train yourself to do it. The number one thing I would do, you see, I don't go in the gym anymore and train people. I wish I had time to do it because I really do enjoy it, and I do think I'm a really good trainer, just because I've been doing it for so long. Start out with really lightweight. Go in the gym and learn your technique first. Don't worry about what you're lifting. Even if you've been doing this for 10 years and you're just not getting the benefits of deadlifting, go to the gym and pretend you've never done it before. Start with like a very lightweight, work on the form and the technique, keeping your back straight and using the right technique, squatting down low enough, driving from the legs and the heels. And what you'll find is that when you develop a good technique, that will translate. It's like you're training your body and your nervous system to do things the right way. Now, as you increase the weight, you're not going to lose that form because you're going to have basically driven it into your head. This is the right way to do it. And then as the weight gets heavier and heavier, you'll continue to do that. And what you'll find is that you'll actually be stronger 3-4 weeks down the line than you were prior to reinventing yourself, so to speak. Because now you're doing things the right way, you're using the right muscles.
91 JDG, why is my right calf bigger than my left calf, and what exercise can I do to bring up the outer part of the calf?
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Maybe you like to, stand on one foot all day long. I don't know. Everyone has one side bigger than the other side. It just could be that you favor that side for whatever reason or another. I don't know. As far as how to develop the different calf heads, the two gastrocnemius heads, you could do the old, when you're doing standing or seated calf presses, you can turn your feet this way to work the outers. You can turn it this way to work more of the inners. You can turn them straight on. I always just did them straight on. I found that if you did them straight on, I got equal development. I didn't really believe in turning in this way because whenever I turned my toes in or out, I never felt my calves contract as well. So I just used to do it straight on, and I just, as the muscle got bigger and I worked it, they grew better and they grew evenly. The key is that if you're not feeling it in your calves, you're not training your calves. So, and I've talked about this in previous shows, I found that by doing less sets for calves, I got a better results because I found that the first couple sets I did for calves, I always felt the most. And then as the bottom of my feet got fatigued, I wasn't able to, flex my calves as well anymore. And it could be that because I have flat feet and fallen arches, even when I wore my orthotics in my shoes. So what I started doing was doing less sets. So I only do 2 sets for calves each training session, and I only train my calves twice a week. I do 15 reps per set, but I put out a maximum effort. Okay, and I find that I can get good results like that. If I do like 10 sets or 8 sets, by the third set already, I don't even feel it in my calves anymore. All I feel it is my feet. And if you feel it in your feet, you're not working your calves. And you have to just come to grips with that.
Rob, actually, I'm going to save this one for the end. Grazy54, can you explain glucose disposal agents and your thoughts on them?
It's another one of these faddish supplements. Glucose disposal agents are really, they're supplements that will help your body absorb carbohydrates and protein potentially more efficiently. Keep blood sugar levels under control. Some of us run high blood sugars. These are like natural versions to help us absorb our food better. Cinnamon's been considered one of those. We used to use, what is it called? The blue pill. I can't remember. No, what the hell is the name of the? I'm drawing a blank, but there was a little blue. It's a metal, a trace metal, and we used to take that. I'm sure everyone else is saying it right out to themselves. And we would take that to help us absorb things. The problem is with these disposal agents, we don't know how much you're actually absorbing of the stuff or how potent they are. There's no quantifiable amount that you could actually take and say, okay, I'm going to eat this many carbs. I'm going to take this glucose disposal agent, and it's going to help me absorb my food. So I'm not that high on them. Believe it or not, the best insulin sensitizing agents, and let's face it, the reason you don't absorb enough glucose is because your insulin receptors are not receptive enough. In other words, you don't have as many of them, so your body's overproducing insulin, trying to absorb all this nutrients because you're eating so much food that number one, your pancreas gets fatigued, and you could burn out the production of insulin in your body, and or you're just not absorbing your carbs, and you're running high blood sugars, which obviously has its own implicit problems built into it. Eye damage, kidney damage, vascular damage to the extremities. So we don't want that, and that's why I've been advocating for people to go out and buy blood glucose monitors from like Walmart for $9 and check your blood sugars first thing in the morning, fasting, 2 hours after meals. You should be under 90, in the morning. 2 hours after meals, you should be under 130. If you're not, then you don't have good glucose control in your body. And if you're taking a lot of growth hormone and that's making it worse, which is usually the case, then you might need to take some insulin with that, And these are things that I can help you on an individual by individual basis, but it's hard for me to give you generalizations on that. So to answer the question, I think it's a fad supplement, these glucose disposal agents. I know a lot of people selling them and people feel guilty. Oh, I'm taking growth hormone. I better take something. I'll just go buy this. But you know what? Don't just waste your money on things that don't necessarily work and they're not definable. People thought that that chromium was a glucose disposal agent because it helps with insulin sensitivity, but it really doesn't. You need chromium present for insulin to work, but if you have enough of it in your body, okay, and you're not deficient in it, taking more is not going to make you absorb carbs better. So that's a fallacy right there. To me, the best insulin sensitizing agent, aside from doing exercise, because exercise is the best insulin sensitizer, is taking a fish oil supplement, a high potency fish oil supplement, also supplementing with palmitoleic acid, which is an omega-7 fat. My Omega-Lyze formula, if you take 3 pills twice a day, you'll get 3 grams of fish oil, which is perfect, per day. You'll get 2,600 milligrams of evening primrose oil per day, and then you get the palmitoleic acid also added in there, which is a tremendous insulin sensitizer and total body inflammation reducer. So those to me are the most powerful insulin sensitizers. Why do you think it is that when you eat fish, you lose weight better? Because you have those omega-3 fats in the fish and you're sensitizing your insulin receptors better. When you eat red meat, you have no omega-3 fats unless you're eating grass-fed beef, which most people don't. So you're getting no insulin sensitivity advantage, and that's why a lot of people have poor blood sugar control when they're eating high meat diets or high chicken diets. So it goes back to what works the most effectively and predictably, okay? If you're not gonna go to insulin, okay, fish oil supplements or essential fatty acid supplements. And like I said, I'm not trying to pump my own product, but I know that the Omega-Lyze has the effective dosages in there because I purposely put them in there. 3 pills twice a day, you don't have to worry about anything. It's an insurance policy on your health.
2 more questions, one from Howard 9. He's asking about biceps tendons. I always get sore, annoying feeling in my left bicep tendon connected to my forearms area. Sometimes it goes away, sometimes comes back. Either way, I twist my wrist to the end point. It pulls, never pulled. It just always gets really sore sometimes and lasts weeks or months and goes away for a bit, then comes back.
Yeah, without getting enough information from you, I would tend to guess that you're probably not training your forearms. As you start lifting heavier, bench pressing heavier, doing pulling movements heavier for your back, if you don't train those forearms, they become the weak link in the chain, and you start pulling weird little muscles in here and your wrists start to hurt. I know it sounds like, how can that be? I have huge forearms. Trust me, it happened to me. I know you've probably, a lot of you guys who watch this show regularly know I've talked about this before. Do your wrist curls, do your reverse wrist curls twice a week, and I'm telling you, it'll go away.
Last question. You're going to have to go in a bit of a time machine here. Dave, if Joe Weider or the Weider Company invents a time machine and uses it for the 2018 Olympia, brings back the very best version of Dorian Yates, Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, and Phil Heath to the stage, what order these guys finish in 1 to 4? And of those 4, who wins? All right, this is getting into too much detail about the mandatory poses, but 1 through 4, Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath, and Dorian Yates. Your call.
Ronnie first, Dorian second, Jay third, Phil fourth. Just because Jay's bigger than Phil. But I don't think the first two placings are not even negotiable.
He goes on to say that maybe you could do a mega episode of Versus with that scenario.
There you go. Yeah, we'll have to pull the right pictures, though. We got to get Dorian from 93. Yeah. We got to get Ronnie from 03. We got to get Heath from 2011 or 12, I think, and Cutler probably from 2001 when he should have won the Olympia, but he was second that year. Though you really should throw Lee Haney in the mix too, but you might as well get Lee Haney when he won his last Olympia and beat Dorian in 1. So that would be a great versus. We'll have to research that one. I'm sure some of our viewers out there will pull the pictures for me and send them over because they know I don't have any time to do that.
On that note, that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. For Dave Palumbo and our producer, Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.